So we got a new Whimpering Waste reset, and I'm not going to waste your time. We basically got double HP inflation and Whimpering Waste within 2 cycles. The enemies got increased resistance, and alongside this, the buffs are becoming more heavily shielded towards newer characters. Does this mean you can't clear? No. Does this mean it's much more difficult to clear compared to before? 100% yes. I keep seeing people complain about the Whimpering Waste HP inflation and difficulty, and people being like, oh, I can still clear with my version 1 limited units, as if that's supposed to be impressive. This game isn't even 1.5 years old yet, and we're supposed to be impressed that version 1 DPS units and their full teams are barely being able to clear this Whimpering Waste reset. Like, what type of fucking logic is that? Is shit, right? That is genuine garbage. That is beyond HSR levels of HP inflation. And no, I am not trying to defend HSR here. I am very open about how shit its HP inflation is. I probably have like 10 plus videos on it. However, the reality is HSR didn't get its bad rep for HP inflation until 2.5 being Fei Xiao's patch. That is 1.5 years into the game, right? And even then, a 100+% HP inflation in an endgame mode for HSR within 2 patches has never happened, right? Even our most egregious HP inflation, instances in the game, we have never gotten a 114% HP inflation in HSR within 2 patches in any endgame mode, as far as I'm aware. So I will say, I think people are rightfully complaining about this 100%, because you need to keep in mind HP inflation is not something that stagnates. This is why it's such a big topic in so many of these gacha games. HP inflation is usually something that only continuously grows and grows and grows as time goes. And if they continue doing this insane shilling and aggressive approach with making the endgame more difficult, then we are going to get to the point. A lot of people said no to this, right? They said, no, Gion, I bet he'll still be able to clear comfortably in 3 or 4 years. But with the current route the game is going, I don't think that's actually going to be the case. You're probably going to need a lot of the version 2 characters to clear comfortably once we go into version 3. And then late version 3, I wouldn't be surprised if the version 2 characters no longer felt as comfortable to clear with, right? This game is once again not even 1.5 years old, and we've already hit the 40% jump mark between signature weapons, and that is compared to standard weapons that are selectable from the banner. If you don't have one of those standard weapons, then it can be 50 to 60% quite commonly for a lot of these newer characters' signatures. Augusta is calced with a 40% jump over the standard 5-star. Yuno is calced with a 35% jump. Prolova is calced with a 40% jump. 35 to 40% jumps in signatures is likely going to be a norm in this late version 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if in version 3 the norm started being more so around 40 to 45%. Of course, this is merely speculation. However, this is something I've brought up before and I was actually correct about. In my crash out video, when before I was getting attacked for giving my opinions on the flaws Whiwa has, you guys may remember I talked about signature weapons and Zanny being a very bad omen for what might be able to come. And a lot of people were just disregarding what I was saying and being like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. How do you know Cartethia this? How do you know this, that? How do you know signature weapons are going to get worse? And even though people didn't like Zanny's signature weapon situation, they still were kind of fine with it. However, now that we're further into the game, even Zanny's signature weapon, I don't believe is as big of a jump as, Yuno's, Augusta's, or Prolova's, right? So, very clearly, Kuro is only going to continue this signature weapon increase. They're only going to continue doing all this other shit. So, what reason do I have to believe that they are just going to stop and stagnate the HP inflation for Whimpering Waste and not continue it even after this disgusting spike in difficulty in the current reset, right? Now, this doesn't mean it's impossible to clear at all. I could 100% clear if I had a third slot for my Zanny Peeb, and if I was an above average player, I probably wouldn't even need a third slot for my Zanny Peeb, and I'd just be able to clear. My Camellia team can get 2.6k, and my Zanny Peeb team can unfortunately only get like 1400, so I'm 500 off the max rewards. Now, I don't actually like Whimpering Waste all that much, so I don't care about missing out on 80 Asterite. I'm just not going to reset because I don't like the mode all that much. However, I do have to say to, Whimpering Wastes enjoyers, time wheel scammers with Brant, right? Because that is one of his main appeals in that endgame mode. It does feel like they are becoming much more aggressive with endgame difficulty as of recent, because for those who don't know, I've talked about this before, they are also adding 2 hazard floors in TOA in the next patch. So before, when you only needed 1 or 2 good teams, depending on how good of a player you are, you now need 2 to 3 good teams, which doesn't feel all the best, right? So let me know what your guys' thoughts is on the current Whimpering Waste reset in the comments. To be honest, I think another issue that a lot of people have talked about, but isn't stated enough, right, is not only this HP inflation, but the mobs you are fighting live in the game, right? Chop Chop is a bitch, right? Like, this fucker spawns in and he instantly starts twirling like a fucking ballerina, thinking shit sweet, pushing you to the edge of the map, and then the other Chop Chop is on the other side circle jerking. The AI hasn't even recognized your existence, so it's just standing still looking at you, and it's making you miss so many of your attacks, and it makes it so much longer to clear them. Now, me personally, after a few resets, I learned how to string them along on my Camellia, and I managed to get like an extra 500 to 600 points because I was finally able to hit all my nukes on all 3 of these bitches. But holy fuck, these guys can completely break one of your Whimpering Waste runs if they decide to just fuck you over with the shit AI, right? So you not only have to deal with the shit HP inflation, the terribly shield buffs, but you also have to deal with this dumbass mob that just does whatever the fuck he feels like, and you can't predict it in the slightest, right? Another annoyance I have, and this is less Whimpering Waste related, but this does happen in Whimpering Waste a lot, is these fuckers will grab you. If sometimes you like miss a crit on one of these guys, so they're alive a little longer, you need to like stop hitting with your Camellia, and it's so annoying because I'd rather just have S1 with the, interruption resistance. This is incredibly common in Whiwa. They sell interruption resistance behind sequence 1s, and this shit is underrated against these Chop Chops because sometimes they'll just fucking hit you or grab you, and they'll waste like 2-3 seconds from that one hit, right? It's so fucking bad. So let me know how your guys' Whimpering Waste run went. I couldn't clear, right? I don't know if I'll pull Augusta. I know I've been very open about pulling Augusta before, but the recent sneak peek, the Whiwa trailer with like Q1, Chisa, and all that reminded me of how much I love Chisa. And I don't know, right? If those leaks about Chisa being a Spectral Frazzle Arrow Erosion support end up being true, then I'm just going to hope she's like a character and you can just buy sequences and Runner has a really good main DPS, because otherwise, I don't know, right? I really, really love Chisa. However, I just don't know how I feel about her being a negative status support for 2 negative statuses, right? That's unrelated though. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. This Whimpering Waste reset is complete fucking trash, and peace out.